Hi, today's quick riff lesson is You by Radiohead. It's from their first album, Pablo Honey. I think that's 1993, or so early 90s anyway. It's the first track from their first album, and this riff comes in at the beginning of the song. So if you were to buy the Radiohead albums as they came out and listen to them in order, the first thing you'd ever hear by Radiohead would be this riff. It's a good example of how Radiohead play around with timings and different sort of time signatures and things. Very imaginative the way they do that, and this is a great example of that. There's two ways you can count it, just a little bit of theory just quickly before we get stuck into it. You can count it as being in 12/8, or you can count it as being in 6/8. Now 6/8 and 12/8 are kind of the same thing really. If you have one bar of 12/8, it's a bit like two bars of 6/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So on 6/8 you're accenting the 1 and the 4 normally. 12/8 accent the 1, 4, 7, 10. So the reason I say you can count it in two ways is because there's literally a very odd thing about this, where if you count it in 6/8, we'll call it 6/8 for the moment. Then you play 6/8, 6/8, 6/8, 5/8. The 5/8 is very unusual, and there's just basically a missing note off of the end where you expect there to be an extra note and there isn't. So you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 three times, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when you play this riff, you have to really watch that you don't add a little one note pause on the end before starting again, because otherwise you're turning it back into a bar of 6/8. If you count it in 12/8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, one bar of 12/8, then it'd be one bar of 11/8 afterwards, so one note missing again. Anyway, that's enough on that. You will see how that works when we get to it. So the way the riff starts is like this. It's really quite simple. You hold one finger, probably first finger's best, 13th fret on the 3rd string, and you've got to be careful not to touch the strings that are underneath. So make sure your finger's round, make sure your thumb's not too high up, because your finger needs to be pointing in at that string but not touching these. The reason why is because we need to play those open. So you play the 13 followed by the 2nd string and then the 1st string open, and then you add 3rd finger onto the 15th fret on the 2nd string, so the 1st string's still open, and play the same 3 strings. So if you put that together without any gap, like that, and then we play that same thing again. That's the first half. That would be the first 2 bars of 6/8 or first 1 bar of 12/8. And then you take these two away and put little finger, it doesn't have to be little finger, but that's what I'd recommend, on the 16 on the 3rd string. Still not touching the strings underneath because they're open. And you play 3, 2, 1 again, twice. So what we've got so far is and the last little bit, which is the odd part, we play 14 on the 3rd string. I'm using my 2nd finger because then I'm all lined up in position. And you play those 3 strings once more. So it's 14, open, open. And then the weird bit is he plays it again, but he misses the 2nd string out. So you're only playing 2 notes rather than 3. So it's 3rd and then 1st, and that's what makes it 5/8 or 11/8, depending on how you count it, because you're missing that middle note out. So the last part is like that. So if I put all that together and play it once, it won't sound too weird. The reason it doesn't sound too weird and it doesn't sound like an odd timing is because I just stopped at the end. So your brain will fill in that extra note that isn't actually there. It'll fill in a gap where that note should be. Now, where it sounds interesting and different, and where it's slightly more difficult to play, is when you play it more than once in a row. So definitely practice this riff once to begin with, but then once you've got the hang of it, really try to practice it several times in a row. Just have a listen if I play it twice, so you can hear what happens at the end of the riff when it starts again. It will feel like it's early. So that it just seems a bit strange the way it just suddenly starts again, but that's the nature of that time signature. And if you're watching this video, it means you probably know the song already, and to you it might not sound that strange because you're used to it. But I find it interesting anyway, that funny time signature. And Radiohead do this a lot. But it's quite a simple riff other than that. And you can ignore that thing, all the theory I was going on about with the time signatures if you want, and just learn the notes. I'm going to look at some other Radiohead riffs as well, because there's a few others which have got interesting timings as well. But anyway, if you like this one, please click like and subscribe, and suggest any other riffs you'd like to see in the comments. Thanks.